What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for game week 12. So it's coming a little bit earlier this week. We do have a deadline tomorrow. It's 6 o'clock UK time on Tuesday. So make sure you don't miss that. I'm going to take you through how I'm looking for game week 12, what transfers I'm thinking about making, who my captain is, and we'll quickly run through game week 11 and how I did in that too. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you are new around here as well. So game week 11, finally got a green arrow. I'm back to the lofty heights of just inside the top 1 million, 923k. Look, it's not an ideal position to be in, but we take a green arrow at this point, and hopefully we can get a few more running up to the World Cup. Then we get the unlimited transfers. We can reset for the second half of the season. So 54 points in total. Let me talk about the transfers I made. So I took out both Trent and James for Webster and Trippier, and I didn't really expect a clean sheet from either of those defenders, but I also didn't expect one from Gay instead. I couldn't keep ignoring Trippier. There was reports that James was going to be possibly out until after the World Cup, or that he was going to miss the World Cup, so I knew he had to go eventually anyway. Trent Alexander-Arnold is the most annoying one because it was basically said that he would be out for 2 weeks, right? Klopp said if it was only 2 weeks, he'd be happy, right? I.e. that it could be maybe a little bit longer. And then he's already on the bench against City, and he'd come on for a cameo, and look, he looked okay. It was only a few minutes. And now he's probably going to be fine for game week 12 onwards, and I really wish I kept him. Obviously, that's with hindsight, right? I went with the information we had that he was probably going to miss 2 weeks. That would probably be 3 to 4 game weeks. So I had to get rid of him with that information. But had I known he was going to be fine, I would have kept him. I know Liverpool haven't been great defensively, but he's a big differential over the next few weeks. A lot of people are put off by going for him, and so I would have liked to have kept him, but it is what it is. Trippier and Webster are pretty good for game week 12, as we'll come on to in a minute, and Trippier did get a clean sheet. I didn't expect that, but he has been super consistent, so that was good. So I'm not happy about getting rid of Trent, but it is what it is. I'll talk about whether I need to get him back when we go through the game week 12 team. I've got to give a shout out to Danny Ward. I know a lot of goalkeepers did really well this week. Alisson got an assist and a clean sheet. Guaita and Raya got kind of double figures, but that is the second clean sheet for Leicester in 3 weeks since I wildcarded, and he has enabled me to have more funds elsewhere. Like, a lot of people are going to be thinking about bringing Salah in. I've already got him. I can afford to get Trent back. I can get Foden and Saka and still have Salah and Haaland, etc. I don't really have to reshuffle my team too much. For what it's worth, Leicester's best fixtures from 9 to 16 are the first 4. So he's only really got one more good fixture this week. Then it's going to get much tougher to keep clean sheets. But I'm not really worried about that now. He's got me 2 clean sheets, so I'm happy with him. Maddison, Marcelli and Zaha just got me nothing. Zaha already frustrating. I said this, he's one of those players that just never seems to do it or get points when he's in your team. Marcelli, I don't really mind about that because he's got me so many points. We have been so unlucky with Maddison. Right, for those of us that got him on the game week 9 wildcard, he had 2 yellow cards at that point. He needed to get 3 more before a suspension. I was already looking at getting rid of him for game week 13 anyway, so I just needed him to not get yellow carded in one of the games from 9, 10 and 11, and he got yellow cards in all of them, so that is massively frustrating. It was in the 94th minute for diving as well, and he blanked, so that wasn't great. Elsewhere, Haaland, I wonder if I'm ever going to get a double-digit haul from him. I've captained him 4 times now, 5 points, 6 points, 6 points, and 2 points, right? The guy's rubbish. He's a fraud. I don't know why you're all going on about him so much. Maybe I'll just never captain him again. Mitrovic obviously played. I got a little bit lucky playing him ahead of Andreas Pereira. There was only 2 points in it anyway. Solanke, absolute king. Since I got him on the Game Week 9 wildcard, he's now had 4 returns in 3 games. So that's 3 assists and 1 goal. Love that. They've also had a few penalty shouts over the last few weeks, so hopefully they'll get given one soon and he'll dispatch that too. So he's been great as an enabler. And we've got to talk about Salah. 8 points, finally scores. If you watch that game, tell me in the comments below, how did he not get more points? There was another one-on-one, great save from Edison. Jota, who's really good in the air, headed over the bar from a really good ball from Salah. Nunez I still think now, I said this on stream last night, I still think 12, 14 hours later, whenever the game finished, he's probably still got his head down, right? He's just, for FPL, it's good because he's so greedy, but not passing to Salah when he was in acres of space, it would have been another one-on-one. It's just criminal. So I feel like Salah, 8 points against Man City, and I'm disappointed. That tells you how well he played, and he was I would say sensational. I think he was really, really good that game playing up front. And interestingly, obviously, a lot of people were talking about De Bruyne the last few weeks. I'm just going to get this fact in there, a bit like Rafa Benitez. Since the Game Week 9 wildcard now, De Bruyne has actually only outscored Salah by 1 point, but now I don't need to use a transfer on him. So I feel like that was a pretty good decision in the end to just go for him. And right now, when I look at other people's moves, they're trying to get Salah in, maybe for Kane or De Bruyne. Some people are thinking about bringing Solanke in. So I had a feeling this would happen in Game Week 12. The problem is I gambled that I could stay ahead from Game Weeks 9 to 11, and that didn't really happen. I still think it was the captaincy on Haaland that really killed me in Game Week 9, but ultimately I'm now hoping Game Week 12 onwards is when this team really starts to shine. It might not. We might get a red arrow next week. Obviously, you'll have to tune in to find out. But yeah, happy enough with the team. Looks pretty good going forward. Let's see what the plans are for next week. So for Game Week 12, I've got one free transfer. I actually have 4.3 million in the bank as well. So I'm quite flexible in terms of what transfers I can make this week. And I'll talk about them as we go through the team. I'm also benching Martinelli, Cancelo and Haaland. Now, for anyone that's thinking about getting rid of one of those players to then bring them back in Game Week 13, it's not necessarily a bad move. It's going to be very team dependent. For me, it's going to cost me at least 0.2 million to buy whichever one I sell back. And I'm just not sure there's a player that I'm really going to be missing that much where I need to make those moves. A few weeks ago, I was talking about possibly going without Trippier for a few more weeks, selling Cancelo in Game Week 12 for Trippier, and then reversing that. But just because of what's happened over the last couple of weeks, the Trent non-injury and Reece James getting injured, it's meant that I've got Trippier in early, so I don't need to do that move. And as I run through the team, you'll see that most of the players are fairly nailed on to start this week. It is a quick turnaround for Game Week 12. It is a midweek fixture, so we shouldn't be completely surprised if some players miss out. And obviously, if that happens, I've got no bench. But I think it's a risk worth taking because there's lots of points to come from 13 to 16. Man City and Arsenal is what we're all going to be looking at. And I want to use my transfers to add more, not have to worry to get back the ones that I already had. Okay, so I'm looking at maybe getting Saka in, maybe getting Foden. I don't want to use transfers to have to get Cancelo back or Martinelli and lose money in the process. In terms of the defence and goalkeepers, not a huge amount to talk about. Ward, Trippier, Gay and Webster, they're all players that I fully expect to play this week. Again, we can't be completely shocked if someone misses out, but they should play, right? I'm pretty confident in that. And they've all got really good fixtures. I mean, Ward against Leeds at home. Leeds are a very good attacking side, so a clean sheet's going to be difficult there. If he gets one this week, gets 3 and 4, I don't even care if he doesn't get another one until Game Week 16. That'll be enough for me. So fingers crossed that Leicester can keep up those clean sheets. I'm not confident in that, but you never know. Trippier is obviously brilliant, been super consistent. Everton at home's a decent fixture. Gay should start. Arguably, maybe Anderson is the better pick, but I think I've got him now. I'm not going to kind of be using transfers to switch which Crystal Palace players I have, especially defenders. And ultimately, Gay and Webster will mostly be on the bench after this week. I only really need them now because Brighton don't actually have great fixtures in 13 and 14, but Nottingham Forest at home is about as good as it gets. So those four are decent. Nico Williams is one that I am considering selling. Now, if you're a Nico Williams owner, you do not have to go out of your way to sell him, right? Aurier wasn't in the squad last week. There's a good chance that Nico Williams could play midweek. I don't think he's going to get, unless he gets an attacking return, which is possible because he has been very attacking so far this season. I don't think he's getting too many points, whether he's on the bench or whether he starts, because I think Brighton will score against Nottingham Forest, so then he has to make it up with an attacking return. But I don't think you have to sell him, right? If you've got him, he's a 1 or 2 pointer at most. That's what you should be expecting. Then he can go on your bench for the next few weeks. It's not really going to matter. The reason that I'm thinking about selling him, one, I'm annoyed about Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I don't want to be stubborn about getting him back, but also I have the money to do that, and it doesn't really affect my other moves. Now, again, something could happen down the line where I need that money before Game Week 16, but having looked at possible scenarios for getting Saka in, for getting Foden in, I can still do it even if I buy Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I'm tempted to do it. Nico Williams, who I'm expecting a 1 or 2 pointer from, this will probably be the week where he goes and gets an assist or a goal and I'll look really stupid. But I want to get Trent Alexander-Arnold back because I think Liverpool as maybe not great, you know, they've not been great over the last few weeks, I still think that's a team that can get plenty of clean sheets. And Trent Alexander-Arnold is also very attacking. Now, one consideration I have, and a lot of people have asked me this already, is what about getting Robertson instead? Because they are sticking to this 4-4-2 formation. And what we saw before was Trent was maybe playing a little bit deeper and Tsimikas was the one getting forward. So that might still happen with Robertson, that Trent stays a bit deeper and Robertson is the one that's getting forward. And I think it does look like they're going to keep playing with this formation. So you could go for Robertson. I just think that Trent's got a little bit less competition on the right-hand side. I know Milner played very, very well against Man City. Everybody thought that Foden was going to have a great time down that left side, and Milner and Gomez both played really well. But I'm not sure that Klopp's going to want to play Milner too often in that spot. So I think Trent has a little bit less competition than Robertson, whereas Tsimikas, I think Klopp is a little bit happier to play. And let's not forget, Trent only missed one game, right? So he has been injured, but he only missed one game. Robertson has also been out injured this season as well. So it's not like Trent's the only one of those two that's been injured. So that's why I'm going for Trent. But I do think Robertson looks like a pretty good pick. If you just want to back the Liverpool defence and you want to go completely safe, then Van Dijk's the one to get. But I think Trent is probably who I'll go for. So very, very tempted to go Nico Williams to Trent. I mean, that feels like a pretty good upgrade. West Ham at home, Forest away, Leeds at home, and Southampton at home to come in the next 5 game weeks. If I'm ever going to take a punt on Trent Alexander-Arnold when a lot of other people aren't going to go for him, this feels like the time. That's why he was in the wildcard in the first place. Okay, so with the midfield, Zaha and Andreas Pereira are the easy ones. Andreas Pereira has got 4 attacking returns so far this season. I haven't got a single one of them. Got an assist last week against Bournemouth. He got a goal the week before against West Ham. Was on my bench for both of them. Hopefully he can keep this up against Aston Villa at home. But it doesn't really matter because afterwards he's going to go back to the bench. This is really what he's in the team for. At some point, there might be a case where I sell him to an £8 million midfielder and go 5 in midfield. A lot of that will depend on what moves I make over the next couple of weeks, but that is something I'm potentially considering. But if not, I'm happy just to have him on the bench. He's still the best bench option in midfield if you're playing more of a 3-4-3 most weeks. With Zaha, already frustrating. I knew this would happen. He hasn't really played well the last 2 game weeks either. So the fact that he's got 1 assist, maybe we should be quite happy with that. There's no need for me to sell him this week when he's got a fixture against Wolves at home. I can let him play that, see how he does, and then reassess. I think at some point I could just sell him to Foden because I do want Saka and Foden sooner rather than later. Zaha is definitely one of those where, I've said this before, the fixtures from 10 to 16 are pretty good. There's never going to be a rush to sell him. He's on penalties. We know he can be a pretty good attacking player as well and get us goals and assists. But if there's a choice between him and Foden, I'm going to take the Man City guy every single time. So that could be a move that I do at some point. But it's probably not, well, it's definitely not going to be this week, right? Because Foden's not playing. But maybe in 13 or 14, that is possibly a move I could make. With James Maddison, he's suspended. Again, extremely frustrating. I am going to sell him this week. There are scenarios, right, where you could just hold Maddison, play with 10 players, and then use that transfer to get in one of Saka or Foden, who, if you haven't got, a lot of people are going to be looking to get. Because if you make a 1 game week move, so a lot of us are looking at Maddison to Trossard, and then he doesn't get points this week, let's say he blanks against Nottingham Forest, and then other players in your team get injured, suddenly you're taking a big hit, whereas you could have just saved the transfer and getting the player that you really know is going to do well from 13 to 16. For what it's worth, as much as there is some of that risk there, I'm definitely going to move him on for a 1-week punt. I'm willing to take the risk that I get good points from that player this week and that there aren't a mass amount of injuries elsewhere, and then I can just move that player on to Saka in game week 13. And as it stands right now, Saka is the one I'm going to get first out of him and Foden, because I think the fixtures in 13 and 14 are better for Arsenal, and he's on penalties as well. So that's who I'm looking to get. And I'm probably going to go from Maddison to Trossard because he has got Nottingham Forest at home, and I'm really just backing that fixture. Now, if I don't do the Nico Williams move to Trent Alexander-Arnold, I can actually get any midfielder in the game because I've already got Salah. So I could get Son against Man United away, Sterling against Brentford away, but I'm not sure they're good enough fixtures to worry about doing that. Like if Son had like Fulham at home this week, I'd probably just hold Nico Williams and get Son in for that fixture. But I think Man United away is a lot tougher than that. So I'm probably going to do Nico Williams to Trent. I'll show you now. and then Maddison to Trossard for Nottingham Forest at home, knowing that Trossard will be my transfer out in game week 13 because the fixtures aren't great. Mason Mount's an option as well, and if this is a position where you might want to hold on to them long term, then you could just go for Mason Mount instead. And maybe that's something that I will consider, because if there are other transfers to make and I can't quite get to Saka because I've got 2 other injuries to deal with, then maybe I could just hold on to Mason Mount. So it's something I'll consider, but I do kind of just want to back that Nottingham Forest at home fixture. So I think this is probably the hit that I will take. You know, obviously Maddison's going to get absolutely nothing, and Nico Williams is probably a 1 or 2 pointer. Trent's got West Ham at home. We know he can be attacking. Trossard's got Nottingham Forest at home. It feels like a very small risk to go for that move. And then coming on to Salah, he's going to be my captain. This is one of the reasons he was in my team in game week 9. I know we've spoken a lot about how he's not value unless you're going to captain him, but I knew unless something crazy happened, I was probably going to captain him this week. So he will be my captain. I'm not going to move on to anyone else. Even if I bring Trossard in, I will still go with Salah, and that's the defence and midfield. And then up front is Mitrovic and Solanke, both with pretty nice fixtures this week. Aston Villa at home. I will say Aston Villa played pretty well against Chelsea at the weekend, but I think Fulham will do decently at home, and Mitrovic should be fine. It is worth saying, there was a tweet, and I'll have to try and find it and maybe retweet it onto my timeline, where Mitrovic has said that he had to take quite a few painkillers to play. The only good thing is, the turnaround time for Fulham is Saturday to Thursday, so it's quite a big break before he has to play again. So hopefully he'll be fine, right? So he should play for that fixture. If we find out he's not playing, I could look to move him on, but I'm not sure which forward I would go with. Like, Nunez could be a nice short-term option, but we've seen Klopp just bench him against Man City. That could happen again over the next 3 fixtures, and it would stop me being able to get Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. But I think Mitrovic will be fine, so I'm probably going to hold on to him. We probably won't hear from Marco Silva before that game, or at least before the deadline, so I'm just going to hold on to him anyway. And obviously Solanke has been great for me. He's a little bit of an enabler, and Southampton at home is a pretty good fixture. For anyone that's thinking about bringing Solanke in, I don't think it's an issue at all. Like, there'll be a lot of people, maybe I'll talk about this in the preview tomorrow, I don't want to get into it too much. There's going to be a lot of people thinking about doing Kane and a midfielder to Salah and Solanke, and all I would say, a little bit of caution is, good fixture, but then it's West Ham away and Spurs at home, which is a little bit trickier. So one of the moves I talked about, Andreas to Foden, I could bench Solanke for these 2 fixtures and then play him for 15 and 16 and just have him as a bit of a bench option. So I don't think he's a bad option to bring in. He's always going to play. He's going to get close to 90 minutes, penalties, all that kind of stuff as well. But Southampton at home is probably his last good fixture until game week kind of 15. Even that won't be that easy against Leeds, to be honest. And then it's Everton at home, right? So just that's the only word of caution on Solanke. But ultimately, that team looks pretty good. If I bring Trossard and Trent in, I've got 11 players all playing at home, all with pretty nice fixtures. I shouldn't say this, but I'm kind of confident about game week 12, right? And it is a week where a lot of people aren't going to have, like, you know, Man City and Arsenal aren't playing, so there's not many players that I'm missing that other people are going to have this week, right? Obviously, people are going to have Saka and Foden next week, etc. But this week I should be okay. It's just really Son and Kane, and they're playing Man United away, so I'm hoping they can keep the score down. So I think things are looking pretty good. Like I said, transfers will probably be Maddison to Trossard, Nico Williams to Trent, and I'm going to captain Salah. So I thought I'd do a little bit of tinkering to show you how the plan will look over the next couple of weeks. There's not really going to be massive amounts of new information here in terms of transfers that I'm making, but sometimes it's nice to visualise. So this would be the team as it stands this week. Obviously, Maddison would go to Trossard, and then Nico Williams would go to Trent, right? And I'll show you what Trent could possibly block for me in the future. So I still have 2.4 million in the bank, and obviously that would cost me 4 points, but that's how the team would look this week. I think it looks pretty nice. So game week 13, Webster obviously goes on the bench. He's got Man City away. I'd also bench Gay, so suddenly like Gay with Everton away is not that bad, so he's a nice bench option just in case Trent doesn't play against Nottingham Forest, but hopefully he will. The only thing that slightly worries me is Liverpool don't have much rest in between game weeks 11, where they've just played obviously Man City, then when they play West Ham midweek on Wednesday, then they've got to play the early fixture on Saturday, which we know Klopp hates, right? So it is the 12:30 game. So Trent is not without his risks, but I think he's good enough that I will probably risk it. And obviously Haaland comes in as well. So that's how the team looks. Trossard's got Man City away, so he would go to Saka. And look, yes, I would like Foden in as well this week, but it's not the end of the world if I have to play Zaha against Everton away. So that would be the team. And then in this week, everything looks pretty good. Everyone apart from Ward in goal has got a pretty nice fixture. And again, I wouldn't necessarily be in a rush to sell Zaha for Southampton at home to get Foden in, but I would have a free transfer in game week 14 if I wanted to make it, right? Or I could roll into game week 15 and do it that week instead. So that's the thing about Zaha. He's frustrating, but you don't ever really need to sell him. And then when you get to game week 15, that's the time I could do it. But what's interesting is Trent's then got Spurs away and Southampton at home. So I could hold him for Southampton at home if I wanted to. The other move I could make is keeping Zaha, bringing Foden in for Fulham at home, benching Mitrovic for Man City away. Now, this is where it suddenly starts getting into, is that overthinking territory, right? To bench Mitrovic against Man City away. But ultimately, it's the hardest fixture you're going to have all season. So if he's going to blank, that could be the week it happens. And then I'd sell Trent to someone that's 4.8 million. I've not given it a huge amount of thought in terms of exactly who I would get. I need a player with 2 good fixtures over 2 weeks. But whoever it is, it doesn't massively matter, right? So let's just say it's Dunk for Wolves away. So I could play him. And then the next week, I'd probably just bench Mitrovic again against Man United at home because Solanke's got Everton at home. So Trent does let me do that by selling him again in game week 15, but I don't have to do that, right? If I get to game week 15 and I want to keep Trent, I can just sell Zaha to Foden instead and either use the other transfer or just roll it. Or like I said, I could just make that move in game week 14. The other thing I could look at, and I'm going to reset this completely really quickly, so we'll just set the team back up for game week 12, is if I don't get Trent and I just do Maddison to Trossard. So don't take the hit. I still think it's worth it, but let's say I don't. Then in game week 13, I can do the Trossard to Saka move again. Obviously, I'm not going to bench all that. You know that I'd play the Man City and Arsenal players, right? And then game week 14, if we come on to that one, I could sell Andreas to Foden instead, and then bench Solanke for his 2 difficult fixtures, which would be Spurs at home and West Ham away. Again, it does feel like a little bit overthinking because they could just get a penalty at any time, right? Him and Mitrovic. They score that and then you look stupid for doing that. But then I'd play 3-5-2 a couple of weeks. Game week 15, I'd then bench Mitrovic for Solanke. And basically, I've already set it up. But I just think getting Trent in gives me the option to get Foden in 15 or just gives me the option to sell Zaha instead. And I don't think either are that bad. I know, like, I am a little bit wary of booking in this many transfers because injuries could happen and that kind of messes up your plans. But once we're through 12 and 13, game weeks 14, 15 and 16 are always a week apart. There is Champions League games as well. So it's a little bit of a worry, but I think I like having an idea of kind of where I want to go, even if injuries kind of mess that up later. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to take the hit, get Trent straight back, bring Trossard in for a 1-week punt, and after that we just cross our fingers and hope. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and I'll catch you later on for another video.